women through performance and style. The athletic collection also includes Serena Williams. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers play their final 6 games of the regular season on the road beginning tonight at Arizona. Any combination of 3 wins for the Dodgers or 3 losses by San Diego gives the Dodgers their 12th NL West title in 13 seasons. Chargers running back Najee Harris, signed in the offseason as a free agent, will miss the rest of the season with a torn Achilles tendon. Harris suffered a non-contact injury in the second quarter of Sunday's win over Denver. After week 3, Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert leads the NFL in passing yardage with 860. Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua leads the NFL with 333 receiving yards. Alumni around the country from HBCU Howard University will be in a good mood this week. Howard's football team snapped an 8-game losing streak to Hampton with a 34-7 win Saturday in the Battle of the Real HU. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
Inside my head there is a dream that I wanna see in the sun. Behind my eyes there lives a me that I've been hiding for much too long. Cause I've been too afraid to let it show. Cause I'm scared of the judgment that may follow. Always putting off my living for tomorrow. It's time to step out on faith. I gotta show my face. Been elusive for so long. Freedom is mine today. I gotta step out on faith. It's time to show my face. Procrastination had me down. Look what I have found. I found strength, courage, and wisdom. It's been inside of me all along. Strength, courage, and wisdom inside of me.
That's NDRE. I'm Tavis, Smiley, one of my favorite tracks from India. Delighted to have you with us in this hour of our program. What a spirited first hour that was. I, as I said a few times, was anxious to get Karen Attia on this program for you to hear her in her own words about what happened with her being fired by the Washington Post for essentially just telling the truth about white male violence in this country. And I just hate seeing the system put upon black people. And whether you call me or not, I'm coming to the front line to defend you. If you're black and the system is coming after you for no good reason, as I close that hour saying to Karen, I believe Dr. King did unearned suffering is redemptive. So we're going to hear more from that sister about her work in the years to come. And that is a great segue into this hour. I am honored to have in this hour a conversation with Brown University Africana Studies and History Professor Keisha Blain. I love that name, Keisha Blain. It just goes together. About her new text, Without Fear, Black Women and the Making of Human Rights. She is a noted historian, and the book champions overlooked generations of Black women who advanced the cause of human rights at home and abroad. Professor Blain, good to have you on the program. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you on the program. Let me just start. You heard me say a moment ago, we just finished an hour with Karen Atiya from the Washington Post. The story's been everywhere about the sister who got fired. And I closed that hour with her, just asking her how she situated herself in this moment where Black women seem to be catching hell all across the country. If it ain't Charlie Kirk tweeting about Black women and their brain power or lack thereof, Michelle Obama, Ketanji Brown Jackson, et cetera, if it ain't Donald Trump trying to get rid of Lisa Cook at the Fed, Karen Atiya being pushed out, all the Black women at MSNBC. I could do this all day long if I had the time, sadly. But we seem to find ourselves in a moment, before I get into your text, historically, we find ourselves, it seems to me, in a moment in real time where Black women are being put upon. And so before I go backward, let me stay where we are right now and get your take on all the drama that Black women are having to navigate themselves through right about now.
Well, unfortunately, all of these things are not new. As you know, what's interesting about, I think, just my position as a historian is that sometimes when I hear what's happening in the news, I just stop and I reflect on something that happened perhaps in the 30s or in the 19th century. And I always make these connections because I think it's important to understand that the United States has always been a place where Black women have not been fully accepted. And this is true for Black people in general, but you asked me about Black women, and I will say that it's just been a constant struggle in terms of dealing with a number of overlapping concerns, racism, of course, and also sexism, just to name a few. So I think what we see in this current moment is truly a manifestation of an ongoing struggle. It is very much what you might think of as just the legacies of slavery in the United States.
No naivete here. Why has that struggle been so unabated for all these centuries?
Well, I think there are a number of factors at play. One of the things that I often grapple with, and it's something I think about a lot when it comes to my teaching, I try to emphasize to my students that you don't have to be a part of a particular racial group, for example, in order to understand that if something is being done wrong to that group, that quite frankly, you have to advocate for it to end. I think there is an overall lack of empathy. I just think that is true in this nation. There's a sense in which some people have this attitude that, well, it's not my problem, it's someone else's. Or perhaps if I have full access, if I have what I need, then I don't necessarily have to care about the next person. And I think that has cost us, certainly. We have made progress, and I don't want to suggest that we haven't, but I think it's clear that there's a lack of understanding that this is a problem that affects us all. I actually think about something that Fannie Lou Hamer said, and she emphasizes the fact that nobody's free until everybody's free, and it's not just a catchphrase, but it is a way to say that we are deeply connected as humans, right? To my work on human rights, as humans, we're deeply connected. What happens to me certainly should matter to you, and vice versa. And I think if we had that perspective, we would be a lot more advanced in our society.
Couldn't agree more with your notion of the lack of empathy in this country. No doubt about that. When we come forward, as we continue this conversation, I want to ask Professor Blain specifically what she makes of how might I put this, the dearth and the paucity of empathy for Black women in particular. All of us are subjected to that. But when it comes to Black women in particular, what about the dearth and paucity of empathy for them? What's that about? We'll start there. Glad I got it for the hour. The book is called Without Fear, Black Women and the Making of Human Rights. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at kbla1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community-focused. So just go to kbla1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
With Robinhood, not only can you trade individual stocks and ETFs, you can also seamlessly buy and sell crypto at low costs. Trade all in one place. Get started now on Robinhood. Trading crypto involves significant risk. Crypto trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Crypto LLC. Robinhood Crypto is licensed to engage in virtual currency business activity by the New York State Department of Financial Services. Crypto held through Robinhood Crypto is not FDIC insured or SIPC protected. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Securities trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, a registered broker-dealer.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. We've all had that epic rideshare experience. Halfway through the trip, you know their heartbreak, their career path, and they know your aspirations to go find yourself in Portugal. It's human. We're all looking for connection, for someone to listen. But sometimes the people we spill our hearts to aren't exactly equipped to help us through it. With over a decade of data-backed experience from helping millions of people, BetterHelp matches you with a therapist based on your needs and goals. No asking for recommendations or endless scrolling through listings. Simply answer a few questions online and you'll be matched with a therapist, often in as little as 48 hours. Join over 5 million people worldwide who've trusted BetterHelp for their mental health and well-being. Get a therapist who gets you. Visit BetterHelp.com/ABC Radio to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/ABC Radio.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley, Professor Keisha Blain, Africana Studies and History Professor at Brown University. Her new text out now is called Without Fear, Black Women and the Making of Human Rights. Working my way inside the text here in just a second, but we are in a moment, as I said at the top of the show, in case you've just tuned in, top of the hour, that Black women are just catching it right about now. And just trying to get a sense of what that's all about. And Professor Blain is helping us put that conversation in context as we work our way again into her new text. So talk to me specifically about the, as I put it, the dearth and paucity of empathy specifically for African-American women in this country.
Well, I think in so many ways it connects to the history that I tell in this book. We really get a sense of how Black women have been constantly facing multiple different kinds of oppression simultaneously. And we often, of course, in today's lexicon, use the term intersectionality, and it helps to explain this idea that Black women, they're dealing with multiple kinds of oppression. So on the one hand, they are facing challenges because they are Black, and so they're having to grapple with racism. They're also dealing with sexism in a very patriarchal society. And then, of course, there are other layers too, whether we're talking about the class dynamics, there are other factors that shape Black women's lives. Certainly when we talk about sexuality, when we talk about religion, just so many different layers. And it's one of the reasons that I'm so interested in writing about Black women, because they have found themselves, of course, not by choice, really at the bottom of this socioeconomic ladder, if you will. And this is true at a basic level. Even if you look at compensation, Black women to this day make far less than their white counterparts. And it's just, I think, a continual struggle. And part of the reason that I focus on their lives and their histories and their stories is because I'm oftentimes trying to make sense of how individuals who face so many different overlapping challenges, what are the strategies, what are the tactics that they employ to resist, and why is it, and that these women, despite all of those challenges, are always advocating not solely for themselves but for everybody else. And so it is a story that I think is important to know. It doesn't make us feel better in the current moment that we're still dealing with challenges that Black women dealt with in the 19th century. At the same time, I do think understanding that history is important for the context, and sadly, I think it's just something that we continually have to navigate. Not solely in the U.S. context. I do think it's a global problem.
Yep. I want to come back to that word resistance, Professor Blain, that you uttered just a moment ago. Kamala Harris's book is out, I guess, today. I mentioned that earlier in today's program. I haven't had a chance to read it cover to cover as yet, but I saw she was on Rachel Maddow, I guess, last night in her first appearance about the book. There are a lot of Black women. I discussed it on this program. A lot of Black women saying they were going to take a respite after what happened to Kamala Harris. Respite, obviously, is the antithesis of real resistance, particularly in a moment like this, which leads me to ask, what does resistance for Black women look like in this moment?
Well, it looks like many things. I will say that on the one hand, I do agree that the notion of taking a break or resting isn't necessarily seen as resistance. But my sense is that there are times, and I think this is true over the last couple of months, where individuals do need to rest in order to do the work that's important to them. I think when we study Black women's lives, we see just so many lives cut short. I mentioned Fannie Lou Hamer earlier. I'm always struck by how she did so much. She made such a positive impact, but she had so many health issues. She didn't take care of herself because she was so busy taking care of so many others. And this is simply to say that in as much as we don't focus on rest as part of the resistance, I do think it is an important aspect of it, because we at times will need to stop, and we'll need to refuel, and we'll need to take some time before we get back into it. And so I heard a lot of people say this. I heard a lot of Black women say they're going to take some time away. And I think that's important. But I do think it's important that once you've rested, once you've rejuvenated, that you get back to the work, because as you know, the work of democracy is ongoing. It's unfinished. And we have to be part of that effort in building a multiracial and inclusive society.
Yep. You mentioned earlier why you enjoy writing about Black women, and I was fascinated by that. I want to just get the backstory to this particular text. This audience knows how I like to engage these guests on this program, and whatever the project is, I'm always fascinated by the backstory. So before I get inside of expressly Without Fear, Black Women in the Making of Human Rights, your new book, tell me the backstory. How did this book come to be? What was the pull, the draw, the impetus for you wanting to pull this one together?
I started thinking about writing this book while I was finishing up my last book on Fannie Lou Hamer. One of the things that I wrote about in my Hamer biography is I spoke about her global racial consciousness. I spoke about her as a global thinker, as a human rights activist. It was an aspect of her life that I don't think I don't think many people know as well as her work within a national context around voting rights. And in one of the chapters, I talk about how she traveled to Guinea in 1964 and how that trip really transformed her thinking, how she started to draw the transnational connections, really thinking about what people were dealing with in Mississippi and linking that to what's happening in the Congo. So drawing a critique that was both about racism on the one hand, Jim Crow certainly, but also about colonialism and imperialism. And as I was finishing up that book, I knew that there was a lot more that I wanted to say. And I thought at the time, well, at some point I need to write a book on human rights and center Black women I felt a great sense of urgency to do so in 2020 because of the national and global protests around really in the aftermath of the tragic police killing of George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that was very evident to me and to so many others was how visible Black women leaders were in these political movements.
Mm-hmm.
I remember putting on the TV one day and seeing a news story about Tamika Mallory, who was giving this fiery speech and just reflecting on all that she was saying about the United States and calling out just the hypocrisy and drawing on the history to talk about racial violence. And I thought about that particular moment combined with so many other snapshots of Black women leaders in this public sphere. And I thought it would be important to contextualize that, to help readers understand that someone like Tamika Mallory really builds on a rich legacy that extends hundreds of years before.
Mm-hmm.
And it truly is an inspiring story and an important one for people to know. And I really set out to write that book to contextualize that moment. And in the process, I learned a lot. And so it really has been a fascinating journey.
Yeah. Speaking of fascinating journey, I have had the honor in my lifetime. I say this with all humility, but I want to make a point here, which I think will make sense to you. I've had the honor in my career of not just knowing, not just interviewing, but being friends with Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks was a friend of mine, and I get chill bumps just saying that. Dorothy Height was a friend of mine. And I could run the list. Merle Evers is still a friend of mine. And I've been just fortunate. I've sought these people out. Coretta Scott King was a friend of mine. I've sought these people out because I have such regard for their contributions to history. And when you talked about the visibility of Black women in these modern day, if I can use that phrase, these modern day, these contemporary movements, my mind went immediately to the flip side of that, which is the invisibility. The invisibility. You know where I'm going here. The invisibility of Black women who were always present, but were not allowed to step forward. So I'm thinking of Dorothy Height as part of the Big Six, but she couldn't speak at the March on Washington, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You take my point. I guess my question is, talk to me about. I don't want to use the phrase. I don't want to say flip the frame, but just talk to me about the journey. From Black women who have always been present again, being invisible or more invisible then, and the way they become more visible in real time. Does that make sense as a question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And in so many ways, I think the arc of the book helps us see this development over time. One of the earliest stories that I recount in the book is that of Mariah Stewart. And Mariah Stewart, I talk about her in the context of the 1830s. This is an early Black feminist, an abolitionist, very bold, speaking out against slavery, calling out just the mistreatment of Black people, not only in the US context, but globally. I talk about how powerful she is in the context of the 1830s. So we're talking about at a moment where so many Black people are enslaved, primarily in the US South, that this Black woman stands up in a place like Boston, and she's publicly speaking before mixed race audiences, speaking to men and women, and speaking about the importance of freedom and liberation, speaking about rights and liberation. And her story is such an important one to reflect on, because one of the things that I talk about in the book is the fact that she had to make the difficult decision to retreat from public life. And why did she have to do that? Well, we can guess why she had to do that. Because there were people who didn't think that a Black woman should have even had the right to be able to speak publicly, and certainly not about these political matters in the 1830s. So she faced resistance from so many different sides, and really as an attempt to preserve and protect herself, she pulled back from public life. I mentioned that story because in a way it sets up a lot of what happens as we move forward. So many of the political organizations that we talk about were critical spaces for Black women to engage, but oftentimes not in a very public way. So we talk often about Black women as leaders behind the scenes, the ones who were doing critical work, but not necessarily receiving the attention for that work. You reference several figures in the context of the civil rights movement, and we see that so clearly, even when it comes to the Montgomery bus boycott. I this is something that I talk to my students quite a bit when I teach that particular moment in history. I start with Joanne Robinson and the Women's Political Council, and students always say to me, "Who is this?" Because they might have heard of Rosa Parks, but they have no idea, right? And so it's just important, I think, to look at that arc over time, how Black women assert themselves, and in the case of Mariah Stewart, how they have to step back for their own protection in a very hostile environment, but how they still continue to advocate and they find ways to do so behind the scenes. Of course, with time, Black women are able to take on more visible roles and more opportunities open, especially with the passage of certain key civil rights legislation. So it is a story that I think unfolds, but I always say to people, even if you don't see them, Black women are working.
So the subtitle of the book is Black Women in the Making of Human Rights. How is it then, given that relative obscurity, that relative invisibility, never mind their powerful presence, how then do Black women have their impact, their say, their imprint on the making of human rights?
So they respond in very creative ways. One of the things that I talk about in the book is just the power of journalism. There are so many women who I write about who simply did not have an opportunity to be in certain spaces. We often talk about the importance of having a seat at the table. And I always say, well, sometimes not only are there moments where people don't have a seat at the table, there are moments where people don't even make it into the room. And that is really the case when we talk about Black women, oftentimes in the context of human rights history. They're not necessarily in the spaces within these traditional halls of power where decisions are being made. So one of the ways that they're able to share their views, they're able to try to steer the conversation or move it forward is through their writings. So I highlight a number of journalists who are writing explicitly about human rights and what it means. They're talking about the United Nations. They're challenging the United Nations to expand the focus, to emphasize colonialism, to think about Black women on a global scale. So just the pen becomes a powerful tool. And it actually generates conversations. And I think that's what's so powerful, is just being able to trace the stories of how people read these articles, how they engage these articles within their communities, within various social groups. It really helps to lit a fire among people on the ground. And so it is a story about being able to shape a history of which other people don't necessarily want you to be a part of or think you should be a part of, but the determination to have your voice heard. And so journalism becomes one avenue among so many that these women utilize.
So in this book, Without Fear, Black Women in the Making of Human Rights, Professor Blain unveils for us how, shows us quite vividly how Black women in this country were among the first to even coin the term human rights and articulate its meaning. When we come forward, I want her to unpack that for us, how they were defining human rights then as one of the first groups of people in this country to use the term, and how we juxtapose that definition then with that definition now, how we contrast and compare those things. Again, the book is called Without Fear, Black Women in the Making of Human Rights. A great deal more to cover with the author, Brown University Professor Keisha Blain on Tavis.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. A candlelight vigil was held last night in Charlotte in honor of the Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska, who was stabbed to death on a light rail last month. Reverend James Bauer said, "Enough is enough."
And so we will not stand by anymore. We will fight for our city.
Police say the attack was random. DeCarlo Brown is charged with her murder and remains in custody. The Weeknd has dropped out of Global Citizen Festival in Central Park due to personal reasons. Cardi B will take his place Saturday, joining Shakira, Tyla, Mariah the Scientist, and more. And DC Mayor Muriel Bowser wants the city to host the 2031 Super Bowl. She says the new Commander Stadium opening in 2030 and hosting the NFL Draft in 2027 makes it possible and key to boosting the local economy. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers play their final 6 games of the regular season on the road beginning tonight at Arizona. Any combination of 3 wins for the Dodgers or 3 losses by San Diego gives the Dodgers their 12th NL West title in 13 seasons. Chargers running back Najee Harris, signed in the offseason as a free agent, will miss the rest of the season with a torn Achilles tendon. Harris suffered a non-contact injury in the second quarter of Sunday's win over Denver. After week 3, Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert leads the NFL in passing yardage with 860. Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua leads the NFL with 333 receiving yards. Alumni around the country from HBCU Howard University will be in a good mood this week. Howard's football team snapped an 8-game losing streak to Hampton with a 34-7 win Saturday in the Battle of the Real HU. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40, and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-729-7070. That's 1-800-729-7070. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-729-7070. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
The book is called Without Fear, Black Women and the Making of Human Rights. The author of that book is Brown University professor of Africana Studies and History, Keisha Blain. Honored to have her on this program. Has written a previous book about the late, great Fannie Lou Hamer. And again, delighted to be in conversation with Professor Blain in this hour of our program. So I was mentioning before the break that you make it clear for us that Black women were among the first to even coin the term human rights and put some something to its meaning then. Take me back then, and I wonder if I can ask you to compare and contrast how they defined human rights then and how you define human rights now vis-a-vis Black women.
So one of the things that I do in the book is really spend time with women's writings, especially in the 19th century and even earlier. But I focus on the 19th century. I mentioned earlier Mariah Stewart, who's speaking boldly and talking about liberation and rights. She's one of the individuals who really articulate this idea of human rights. And to be more specific, she's focusing on a number of core values, if you will, that ultimately are fundamental to the notion of human rights. So the first being natural rights, emphasizing the fact that there are certain protections that we are all supposed to have because it's tied to our humanity, essentially, and universal rights that we all should have certain protections, regardless of where we happen to be located, regardless of citizenship status, and then finally equal rights. That there should be an equal playing field for all people. Now, to articulate that in the 1830s. Is quite revolutionary because we're talking about a period where slavery still exists in the United States, legal slavery still exists in the United States, and yet Mariah Stewart was really making a case that it's not a question of fighting to prove that Black people should be treated as citizens. That's not even the question. That's not even the topic. What is the topic is the fact that they should be treated as human, and that there are certain God-given rights, so divinely inspired rights that they should have, and quite frankly, that no one can take away. And being able to make that argument, moving away from just a conversation about the nation and what the nation owes to people of African descent, like all of that, there's certainly a time that these conversations emerge. But for Mariah Stewart and so many others in this period, it's about moving beyond the geographical borders of the United States and understanding that what's at stake really is a question of human dignity.
Yeah. Speaking of human dignity, what does it mean for many of these Black women to be fighting for civil and human rights when they themselves have not even been recognized as citizens of the United States?
Yeah. Yes, this is the part that really, I think, captivated me and moved me as I was writing the book, because part of it is the way that I can explain it is that part of it was this sense that they could go back and forth, and oftentimes they did with other individuals about whether or not Black people are citizens of the United States. So, of course, this has been an ongoing debate And when we look at the historical record, we can see the way that Black people have been treated as second-class citizens. The idea that maybe they are seen as citizens, but not quite at the same level of other groups. And this is certainly a conversation that was taking place, especially when Black women are making a case for expanded voting rights, to be able to say, this should happen on the basis of citizenship, and to appeal to the Constitution, to talk about Reconstruction amendments. So they're all of these things are certainly taking place as people navigate. But what I find particularly compelling is their ability to essentially elevate the conversation, move it beyond the limited framework of civil rights. Because if you're talking about civil rights or citizenship rights, you really are talking about the relationship between the individual and the state or the federal government. You are talking about making claims of the federal government, saying these are the things that you should give to me because I'm a citizen and other citizens have it, I should have it too. Some people certainly make that case, but what many of the women are doing in this book is they're essentially shaming the United States, and they're saying, listen, what you're not giving to us isn't just a denial of rights that we should have on the basis of citizenship. You're actually denying us rights that God designed us to have. So this is a violation in the highest possible way. I mean, it really is a powerful argument, and it's a way of moving the conversation even beyond the Constitution or beyond local laws, and saying, all of that, yes, they matter, but even more so, we should have protections, because if you acknowledge us as human, if you are going to recognize our humanity, then we should have quality education. We should have equal access to education, quality healthcare, and the list goes on. So it was about reframing the conversation in order to make a larger demand, and in order, I think, to amplify the need for transnational political solidarity. So that's another aspect of the story, is how these women, by framing their fight as a human rights struggle, it really allowed them to tap into a broader global community of activists in order to work alongside others of all races and ethnicities and nationalities. So Black women essentially advocated for themselves and then elevated, I think, the conversation to emphasize the need for rights for all people.
Speaking of transnational political solidarity, let me pause for a second. One of the thing I think I love most about this book is that it introduces us to Black women, powerful Black women who, again, were involved in the making and the defining, essentially, of human rights, whose names we might not have heard of. You've mentioned a couple already. I would add to that list of Marguerite Cartwright, Pearl Sherrod, Aretha McKinley, the names of women that you may not know. And that's why this book, I think, is so powerful, because it exposes you to women who have been on the front lines of fighting for human and civil rights, again, whose names you might not know, as juxtaposed against others we mentioned in this conversation, like Dorothy Height, Rosa Parks, Merle Everett, Coretta Scott King, et cetera, et cetera. And so that is one of the great joys and the benefits of being able to read a book like this, brought to us by Professor Blain. That said, as you profile these women, we see them operate in spaces that we heretofore, again, did not know that these women were operating. You mentioned journalism earlier in this conversation. I want to push toward these women working for the United Nations, in part because, as we discussed earlier on our program today, Donald Trump gave his speech today, what everyone makes of it, at the General Assembly. It's that time of the year. All these world leaders are giving their remarks in New York City at the UN. And so, to your comment about transnational political solidarity, take me inside the book and these women who had sufficient work to do inside the United Nations, for that matter.
Yes, one of the women who I talk about, who I think is certainly well known, but perhaps not discussed as much as she should be, and that is the educator Mary McLeod Bethune. I speak about her in the context of the fact that she is the only African American woman who's at the founding meeting, at the founding conference of the United Nations, and she's working alongside of W.E.B. Du Bois, Walter White of the NAACP, and she plays a pivotal role in the crafting of the Charter of the United Nations, which is something that I reflect on in the book. And I mentioned earlier, just sometimes women don't even have a seat at the table. They're not in the room. And Bethune is an example of someone who has an opportunity to be in these conversations. It doesn't mean that she's not facing resistance. In fact, I talk about the fact that she is facing a lot of resistance, and people don't necessarily want to hear what she has to say on the matter. But she's pointing out the very basic contradictions that an organization that's espousing these ideas around human rights that will fundamentally shape the rest of the narrative. That at this particular moment in 1945, she's pointing out all of these nations still under colonial rule. And she's saying we can't actually talk about human rights if you don't want to talk about colonialism. It just doesn't make any sense. You can't talk about dignity. You can't talk about equality. You can't talk about these things and simply use them as buzzwords if you're not going to confront the subjugation of Black people, and not only Black people, right? Other people of color across the globe. And so she's making that point from within. And I talk about the fact that she doesn't necessarily, she's not successful at making all the changes that she wants to see. But in many ways, she does lay the groundwork. And a year after she attends this gathering, another Black woman ends up coming into the UN as the first area expert. And this is Paulette Nadal, who's a French writer from Martinique. I talk about how she comes to the United Nations. And she has all of this hope and excitement about the work that they're doing. And in a similar vein, she's pushing for the same things that Du Bois and Walter White and Mary Bacot Bethune emphasized, which was really paying attention and grappling with colonialism. She advocated widely for women's rights. And so she's doing that in 1946. And for several years, she works within the United Nations. And she's covered widely in Black newspapers. I talk about just the significance of her role. And then I even introduced some other people who are behind the scenes, who I introduced in the text, someone by the name of Sabella Culpepper. She's a secretary at the United Nations. And on the one hand, it seems like a small thing. You know, she's taking notes, she's helping with organizing meetings. But I talk about just how her presence is meaningful, how other people call attention to her presence and what it means to have a Black woman in this space, how Black newspapers cover her life, her stories, and it just serves as a source of inspiration.
No, I was fascinated. I was fascinated when I got into the book to read the backstory of these women inside the UN. And again, given that Donald Trump gave a speech today, seems appropriate to sort of bring that forward. But the influence of Black women domestically and internationally can be felt quite profoundly. In this book, it's called Without Fear, Black Women and the Making of Human Rights. More with Keisha Blain when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandloss.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Keisha Blain, Brown University professor. The book is called Without Fear, Black Women and the Making of Human Rights. I am fascinated by not just their focus on human rights, as you mentioned earlier in this conversation, but indeed how they sort of bridged the notion of human rights and civil rights. Can you say a word about that right quick? My time is getting tight on me.
Yes, it's so, I think you can see that perhaps even more so when I get to the later chapters of the book, where women like Aretha McKinley is advocating for civil rights. She's talking about the need to pass a voting rights laws. And at the same time, she's making a case that this needs to happen alongside of broader human rights and protections. And we also need to be pushing for the end of colonialism across the African continent, as an example. So it was a way that it encapsulates how Black women are often bridging the two, seeing the two as deeply intertwined.
Our remaining moments with Keisha Blain when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach, transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal, prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed for 4 more minutes in this hour with Professor Keisha Blain of Brown University, as we have had the hour to discuss her book, Without Fear: Black Women in the Making of Human Rights. So I think this is the exit question, Professor Blain. How does the work and the witness of these historical Black women figures that you profile in this book, how does it inform? How does it inspire? How does it challenge Black women and their activism in real time?
Well, I think in so many ways it goes back to the title, Without Fear. It comes from a quote from Mary McLeod Bethune in 1944, and she's speaking to African-American women, and she's telling them that this is important work. We have to do it, and we have to do it without fear and hesitancy. And I often reflect on what that must have meant for them to hear those words at a time where there were so many challenges, so many reasons to be fearful. But she was just emphasizing to them that it was urgent, it was significant, and therefore it was necessary to do regardless of one's feelings and fear. So I do think in this moment, there are a lot of challenges that we're dealing with, no doubt about it. But I hope that the book will send a message of inspiration and one that encourages us to continue fighting.
I want to circle back one more time to Fannie Lou Hamer, since we referenced her earlier in this conversation. She was profiled in a previous book by Professor Blain, not in this one. But I'm anxious to ask, to your mind, given your writing of that book, what the enduring legacy is of Fannie Lou Hamer specifically all these years later.
The quote that I mentioned before just stays with me all the time, and that is that nobody's free until everybody's free. It just speaks to the ways that we have to think about the work that we're doing. We have to think about the connections between us as humans. We really do. And I think having that perspective will shape and change a lot of things in society. And I think that's perhaps, it's one of her popular quotes, but it is a powerful one that encapsulates her life, that she was deeply committed to making sure to advocate broadly for all people, because she saw that their struggles absolutely connected to her own.
And finally, here, I lied about my exit question 2 questions ago, but this is the final question. My sense is, as I sit in this chair every day for 3 hours, and my work in the media, my sense is that over the years of my doing this, I have seen the stories of Black women that have been unearthed become more visible. My point is, I think I'm right about the fact that the contributions of Black women are being brought to the fore a bit more year after year. Is that your read of it?
Well, I would have said that maybe a year ago,
Okay.
but I do think some things are shifting, especially in this, in this political climate, this anti-DEI moment. I do sense that some things are becoming more and more. It's becoming more and more difficult, I think, to talk about these important topics. So not an easy time to be doing this work, but it is very important to do it.
No, I received that. We are in a bizarre moment right now, and so I take your caution about what's happening right about now. But over the last number of years, I've been heartened by the stories of Black women that are getting out. But you're right, it's not easy. But I'm glad you got this one done. It's called Without Fear, Black Women and the Making of Human Rights, written by Keisha N. Blain, professor at Brown University. Professor Blain, good to have you on. Congrats on the book, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. A candlelight vigil was held last night in Charlotte in honor of the Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska, who was stabbed to death on a light rail last month. Reverend James Bauer said, "Enough is enough."
And so we will not stand by anymore. We will fight for our city.
Police say the attack was random. DeCarlo Brown is charged with her murder and remains in custody. The Weeknd has dropped out of Global Citizen Festival in Central Park due to personal reasons. Cardi B will take his place Saturday, joining Shakira, Tyla, Mariah the Scientist, and more. And DC Mayor Muriel Bowser wants the city to host the 2031 Super Bowl. She says the new Commander Stadium, opening in 2030, and hosting the NFL Draft in 2027 makes it possible and key to boosting the local economy. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of